Well, a lot of shit has changed. The old tier lists are extremely outdated now. One, the game has changed too much, and two, it doesn't accurately represent my opinions anymore because, well, opinions on this game change like every week, basically. As you play more, you try new things, and certain things go up and down all the time. That's just the nature of these games as we develop and change the meta, right? So there's going to be a lot to talk about today. The main thing is the existence of Aeon Glass, and to be honest, I think Defect is probably the strongest character in the game, if not second strongest, but definitely up there, even after the most recent compact nerf. I think this character is just really, really strong. Everything kind of just works now. Almost all of the cards have a place. There's a few things that don't get picked very frequently, but there's very few like truly unpickable cards on this character. And that's also true of how it was in Spire 1 in terms of as we played the game more, we just found more and more use cases for things. So as we play the game, obviously, we're just going to get better at using all of the cards and tools available to us. And maybe on launch, we were a little bit more narrow-minded. Let's go ahead and just get started. These are loosely alphabetical, so it shouldn't be too hard to find them in timestamps, but I had to like manually drag them down from the old tier list and put them down here. So it's not going to be perfect, but yeah, loosely alphabetical. No one make fun of me. Okay, first up, we've got Adaptive Strike. 2 energy, attack, deal 18 damage, add a 0-cost copy of this card into your discard pile. On launch, I didn't hate this card too much. I think now there's just way less of a need for it. Something like Aeon Glass and Test Subject, where they do demand sort of consistent block output and also higher damage than this, doesn't really want it. If you have something like Feral, and that can be in your deck fairly often, especially if you see some 0-cost stuff early, this gets a bit better. But because it's 2 costs for the first play, I don't believe that your Feral pulls it back right away. You have to like draw around and then play the copy that's actually 0 cost, and then that gets pulled back to your hand. So it's pretty slow damage scaling, and flooding your discard pile with attacks is not usually what you want to be doing, especially when they're so expensive like this. Clad has Anger, for example, which one works better with Clad's actual kit. You don't have energy as much on Clad to play cards with your Bash in your starter deck. So early on, Anger gets in the deck. This one, you're not seeing very early, and 2, you probably don't have a need for it. There's a lot of other ways to solve damage on Defect and just better ways of solving damage. This doesn't scale with as many things compared to like Barrage, for example, that we're going to talk about next, and also any Dark Orbs or other ways of scaling. And it doesn't work with Strength, which there's a lot of ways of getting either enchantments that break multi-hit cards like Vigorous, Akabeko, for example, things like this, or just Strength in general. This just doesn't happen for Adaptive Strike. So I think this card is like pretty firmly C tier now. I don't really like it in very many situations, and Defect rares are pretty good. There's a lot of ones that you just sort of click over everything else, and we don't need to talk about Adaptive Strike in that category when you're mostly seeing it against other rares that are clicked on site. Okay, next up, Barrage. 1 energy, deal 5 damage for each channeled orb, attack. This is a lot of damage, as we just mentioned, if you have orb slots. Also, you can have like momentum on this. You can have vigorous. You can have strength in general, which there's a lot of relics that give strength. So Barrage ends up often becoming very, very broken in a run, even without that. If you pick one other orb generating card, which you're going to do basically all the time, you're going to pick your Ball Lightnings, you're going to pick Coolheaded, you're going to pick Cold Snaps, you're going to pick Chill, you're going to pick Glacier, right? All these things. And there's a lot more on top of that too. You're going to be just picking all the cards that make Barrage good. In the bad case of this being like 1 energy deal 10 is still a decent card, but it has the ceiling of being an endgame scaling attack. So you can pick it for early game damage and it just doesn't really fall off. I think this is like a core card for Defect now, where I often need to find ways to push damage against Aeon Glass, and this is a big part of that. There's just too many ways that you can break it, and it ends up being a very, very powerful card. This is either top of A or like bottom of S tier. Let's start in S tier for now. I just actually do feel very strongly that this is that good. Okay, next up, Beam Cell. 0 energy, deal 3 damage, apply 1 Vuln. You may think that free Vuln like this is pretty strong. Unfortunately, it just doesn't end up being that good unless it comes upgraded or you're already just doing a bunch of physical damage stuff. I know we just talked about Barrage, but that is kind of like the main physical damage thing you're ever going to be doing on Defect. And if you're able to scale it to a point where Barrage is going to be your main damage source, you don't even really need Vuln. It can help, And Beam Cell can get into Strip Artifact, but it's way more important to apply weakness in general in this game than it is to apply Vuln. And sometimes your deck just ends up doing stuff like Dark Orb looping or Lightning or whatever, where you just don't need Vulnerable at all. And this is just a complete brick draw. And you do not want to be adding a bunch of cards that you draw on turn 1 and you're very sad to see. Defect tends to want to treat all of the Frost Orbs and all the orbs in general as powers, and then also has a lot of powers to set up. So similarly to Spire 1, your front load block situation is very important. Every time you add an attack that you just don't care about drawing into and doesn't solve the fight immediately, it means you just didn't draw your charge battery or your algo or whatever it is that you're using to block on turn 1 with. And Beam Cell is not contributing to that. So it's not unpickable. It does get into the deck if you need physical damage, but this is essentially just going to be C tier as well. It's just too fringe, I think, to speculate on early very often. If you are desperate, it can be picked, but very quickly it becomes irrelevant or straight up negative, and you often need to commit an upgrade on it if it's going to be good, which there's a lot of other cards to commit upgrades to. For example, I can commit my upgrade to Barrage, and then that just deals 7, and that's basically the same thing as having Vuln on the enemy, and that's sometimes the only attacks I'm really playing. Okay, next up, Boot Sequence, 0 energy, skill, innate, gain 10 block, exhaust. This bridges nicely from the last thing we just mentioned, which is that Defect cares about front load block a lot. And Boot Sequence is very, very premium. In Spire 1, it was very often that you could not really pick Boot Sequence sometimes because Act 4 didn't hit you on turn 1 super hard and needed you to be set up by turn 2. So when you drew into Boot Sequence in turn 1, it slowed down your setup. Spire 2 doesn't have anything that punishes you really hard for not immediately getting set up, and that's why something like Boot Sequence is better in this game, and also why it's more acceptable to rely on powers and slower scaling in this game rather than in Spire 1. You don't really ever get punished for like picking a bunch of powers in this game very often. Boot Sequence is covering the weakness of picking a bunch of powers and sort of just -1 draw for Anchor. You know, that's pretty strong. Also works nicely with a few other things like the Pale's Relic that doubles your first card block 20 for 0. Really, really good. Yeah, maybe bottom of S tier, maybe A. I've gone up on this, I think, even more since last time, just because of understanding how the game works better and kind of what punishes you. Turn 1, a lot of stuff hits you, and getting your powers down is really, really important, but it's not so important that you are like set up by turn 2, for example. Like the Mecha Knight hits you turn 1 and then gives you like 3 turns until it hits you again. And that's a lot of time. You have a long time before you really need to be set up in fights. This is just covering the scariest turn most often. Consuming Shadow, 2 energy, channel 2 dark. At the end of your turn, evoke your leftmost orb. This is kind of strange. Very often you want to deploy orbs and kind of sit around with them and let them be treated as powers. And what this is doing is getting rid of your orbs. It is a lot of power because you're able to channel dark and then launch those dark orbs right away and do a lot of upfront damage. But I think for the most part, you're skipping this. If you see it inside of Act 1, it's a really, really solid pickup, but falls off very quickly. And in a lot of boss fights, you just don't want to play it. Unless you have something like Trash to Treasure and you're just making a ton of orbs all the time and you don't really care about like sitting on a bunch of Frost Orbs. But there are a lot of Defect runs with like Capacitor modded, Runic Capacitor that want to make a bunch of orbs and sit on them. Or have certain orbs in certain positions, like a dark orb in front and loop that, and like have frost in the back, whatever, have a plasma orb in the back. That happens very often in this game. So Consuming Shadow is weird, but I will make a notable shout that it is really strong early. I think we can put it in B tier, like bottom of it. Not often very strong, but just kind of early and pickup only. Okay. Claw, 0 energy, deal 3 damage, increase the damage of all claw cards by 2 this combat. The upgrade is better in this game than it was in Spire 1, but it's still really, really bad, unfortunately. You can do stuff with like Feral. Claw does get inside the deck in super desperate situations inside of Act 1. Outside of that, it's not really happening. If you have picked like a bunch of Coolheadeds or something, like that can happen. You have like 2 Coolheadeds and you haven't really found any damage or something, and you're super desperate, it can be added. It kind of needs the upgrade to really get to the point where it's ever doing a meaningful amount of damage quickly. If you have strength from like bulk up or something, you can take Claw and do stuff with it. It's just something I try to avoid most of the time because it is just unfortunately a little too slow. And even decks that have Claw, you don't really want to be taking like 4 or 5 copies of it, you really want to be relying on like powers and draw manipulation to play the same claw over and over again, because if you get to the point where you're just only drawing claw, you're not blocking. And that has always been the core issue with it. We're just going to throw this in D tier. It's usable, but it's not good. And I think under 5% pick rate is probably where I'm putting stuff in D tier. I don't think there's truly anything that's like unpickable on this character, but it is not good. Okay, speaking of something in a similar vein, Chaos, 1 energy skill, channel 1 random orb. This upgrades to channel 2 orbs if you are really desperate for any kinds of orbs at all. Like, let's say you picked up an early defrag and you speculated on it, or you have like early capacitor and you have no way of filling orbs. Orbs are going to generate value. It kind of needs the upgrade to do anything, but if you are like seeing it right before the final boss of Act 1 and you have orb slots and you just need to fill them with random stuff to generate value, this is kind of just like value, sort of. It just needs the upgrade. It's really clunky and awkward, and most of the time you would rather know what your orbs are going to be, but if you are desperate for output, it can do something. So again, D tier, but it can do stuff. Again, D tier, just not completely unpickable garbages, but they are very, very, very rarely picked. Okay, Ball Lightning, 1 energy, deal 7 damage, channel 1 lightning. In Underdogs, I don't pick this very often. You can pick it if it's like your first card reward, but you get to a point in Underdogs where it's very easy to just pick block and not need something like this. But Ball Lightning is a very good damage common, one of the better ones, and provides passive output. So you can play it once, sit around, block, do whatever. In Overgrowth, I will say it pushes damage enough that I really do want this card. And if I see it floor 1, it's probably just picked, unless it's up against like premium block cards. And we will talk about what those are in a little bit. But yeah, Ball Lightning, probably A tier for me. One of the more solid early game pickups. Late game falls off a lot, but the fact that it's a common card and you see it early enough means you can skip all the other garbages. Like, now I don't have to add the Beam Cell or the Claw or whatever to my deck because I have this. It funnels into your Barrage, and then you can pick those 2 cards and stop picking anything else, that sort of thing. And orbs do get better with each other, especially without focus, because as you get focus, your passive orb value usually scales at the same rate as your evoked orb value. So having orbs evoke constantly without focus is going to be better value than trying to have them sit around. When you are just cycling your orbs and you have a critical mass of orbs to cycle, you get a lot of value, and Ball Lightning is contributing to just sort of pushing out your Frost Orbs or your Lightning Orbs or whatever it is to get value out of them quickly. And also pushes Dark Orbs around to evoke them quickly. You sort of need to do that, especially inside of early game before you have a bunch of orbs. Okay, next up, Bulk Up. 2 energy, power, lose 1 orb slot, gain 2 strength, gain 2 dexterity. This lose 1 orb slot thing can be a positive. Like I just said, if you don't see focus in the run, which there's not very much permanent focus. It's basically just defrag and focus potion. And it's worth noting that I will buy and hold focus potion in the first shop for the end game. I will do that very frequently and just hold my focus pot for Aeon Glass unless I'm literally dying. So those 2 sources are very important to think about, and focus potion is common, so you do see it very frequently, but for the vast majority of the game, Bulk Up is just doing a lot for you. If you lose an orb slot, you can push out orbs more quickly, which can be beneficial, and this upgrades to 3 strength, 3 dex, which just turns all your blocks, all your attacks, your barrage, whatever, into a very good card. Notably, it does have anti-synergy with barrage, but if you get like modded or you have capacitor alongside barrage, the 3 strength is going to be better than the 1 orb slot, even if you are losing the 1 orb for your barrage damage, whatever. So Bulk Up, super, super strong, really, really important inside of early game for blocking, helps kill bosses, is not too difficult to play because you can often play it alongside block cards, and having 3 decks when you play a block card, let's say you were going to play 2 defends, you go from blocking 10 to blocking 8, which is not so bad of an HP trade-off when you're getting a power that lasts the whole fight. So this is probably just A tier for me. It's a very, very strong card throughout most of the run. If you get to a point where you're scaling with orbs and you don't need the strength, then you will know, and you don't need to pick this anymore. So it's not going to go in S because it gets to a point where you don't pick it too often, I think, for it to be truly S tier. But inside of early game, it's picked most runs unless you're really just doing orb stuff and don't need the dex to block. Okay, Capacitor, 1 energy, power, gain 2 orb slots. I think this card is just really broken in this game. Even without permanent focus, having orb slots scales your barrage, works with your Bulk Up that we just talked about, even works with stuff like Coolant that doesn't truly scale off of orb slots, but kind of does. Synchronize, Hotfix, these sorts of things. Lets you keep a plasma orb around to have permanent energy, which is pretty sparse in this game. it's just very, very strong. I think I'm throwing this in S tier. I speculate on this card a lot more than I did in Spire 1. I think in Spire 1, I learned to never be speculating on this. So I think I went into Spire 2 thinking sort of a similar idea and realized I just get away with it way more often. It's just way easier to pick these sorts of powers and not get punished for it. And then you have the overscaling powers for the end game against the bosses that will kill you, because Aeon Glass and Test Subject are not jokes. And those are really the fights that I think I care about the most on this character, as are most characters, but those two bosses in general are very, very important to think about on Defect. Creative AI. 3 energy. At the start of your turn, add a random power into your hand. I think this is worse than it was in Spire 1. One thing about creative AI that you need to be thinking about is how many powers actually are hits for you. When you play this, it doesn't do anything the turn you play it, and then next turn, it's very unlikely it's generating 3 energy worth of value. This does upgrade to 2, so it gets easier to play, and there's things like Intimidating Helm, or Game Piece, or the power that discounts stuff by 1 that I'm forgetting the name of. You do get benefits sometimes for playing powers that can make this better. Also Permafrost, whatever, it can get easier to put into play. If you don't have any of these things, it's pretty hard to pick this raw. And oftentimes you don't actually really need it. It's easy to overscale with the card pool. It can be a desperation way of doing it. Similarly, on the Necrobinder tier list, I think I put most of the desperate Aeon Glass scaling things inside of B tier, and I think that's not going to change here. It's not a premium option, but I will click it often enough. I think it's better than consuming Shadow in a lot of runs, but it is just pretty hard to play. I think often is not something I'm picking over other cards, unfortunately. It will do the thing if you need it to, but just look at the power list when you're in your run and see how many of those things are truly hits. Like Loop is not really a hit when you don't have Defrag or Focus to go along with it, or unless you don't have Dark Orbs. Like there's things, right? But there's a few powers that just don't do anything, like Smokestack. If you have Subroutine, it gets easier, that sort of thing. But yeah, very often it's not fast enough and not doing enough in your run to warrant carrying the brick around. Okay, Compile Driver. 1 energy, deal 7 damage, draw 1 card for each unique orb you have. I rated this, I think, roughly B last time. I think I'm lower on it now. I don't really speculate on it very much. I feel like there's just other ways to get draw on this character that I'd rather have. I don't think the damage attached to this is very powerful. I'd almost always rather have Overclock or Coolheaded. And we'll talk about Overclock, I think, a bit more in depth when we get to it, since I rated it pretty low on the tier list last time, and it's gone up a lot. There's a lot of reasons for that, but Compile Driver, I think, is C tier now. It's definitely better than like Beam Cell, but I don't really think this is getting in unless I'm super desperate for draw. And I am clicking speculative turbos now, and it's been working out for me pretty well. But the payoff for speculative turbos is often just I have Coolheadeds. And that's a really much better payoff than Compile Driver is. If you have starting orbs, this gets better. So if you have Symbiotic Virus, however, Virus is just a lot more rare in this game because you cannot get it from chests. You cannot get character-specific relics from chests anymore. So it's less likely you're going to have something like Virus and be able to have Compile already draw at the start of the fight. We also don't have like starting Plasma Orb anymore that we did in Spire 1 with Battery. So yeah, just much worse because those relics are often the things that allow you to pick Compile. If you have Chill, it's not even innate anymore in this game. So there's a lot of things surrounding Compile that made it harder to take it. It does still provide desperation draw for you, and Defect does have a lot of turns where it can just pop off and go crazy. There's a lot of energy generation on this character, so it can use a lot of excess draw. But Defect is one of those characters that sort of needs all the pieces to come together. You need like the energy generation and the draw, and this is not something I want to like sit on while I'm like waiting to find energy generation, basically. It's just not quite good enough. Okay, next up, Coolheaded. 1 energy skill, channel 1 frost, draw 1 card. I think I had this in S tier last time. I'm going to drop it to A tier. I am taking less of the temp focus stuff. That doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just getting in less often. If I don't have the energy to support it, I would almost rather just have Cold Snap, which I guess we can just talk about next. The upgrade is quite strong. It draws 2. And you can often do something where you just pick a bunch of Coolheadeds, you upgrade them all, you pick all your energy generation, and that's like all the draw you need for the entire run. Deploying Frost is a very, very strong effect. It blocks throughout the full fight, scales with Focus, scales your Barrage, whatever. But with Dorito in the game, it's a lot worse. Aeon Glass, like, I guess it's not really affecting this too much. But yeah, Dorito's a big one that punishes this. I think overall Coolheaded is just a lot worse than it was last time I made this list. If you have something like Capacitor, you need to fill the slots, and you do speculate on that often. If you have Barrage, this can be a good pickup, but I'm not frequently picking this over some other stuff on floor 1 like Charge Battery, which I think was a comparable thing. Yeah, we're going to talk about both of these cards here anyways, because I think they're kind of related. They all do sort of similar things where they're just like block commons. Cold Snap, 1 energy, deals 6 damage, channel 1 Frost. Cold Snap is premium early game damage, I think. You don't even want to have draw sometimes early because it can draw into things that you miss. Like if I draw into Echo Form with my Coolheaded, that can be a downside. I just can't play that. So it can be a downside to have draw inside of early game. Not that it's like frequent or something, but it's something to think about. And I think this is easier to pick than Coolheaded early. If you can get away with picking Coolheaded, I think Coolheaded is still better. But it's one of those things that inside of Overgrowth, for example, I'm pretty much always going to pick Cold Snap over Coolheaded on like floor 1 or something until I have other damage in the deck. And there's a lot of things like Refract or whatever that does enter the deck that I don't want to be drawing into because I play Coolheaded and I can't play my Refract and I just can't afford to do that. So very often, like in the potato fight, I just straight up cannot play Coolheaded if Refract is in the draw pile and I need to play it. Cold Snap doesn't have this problem. So this is much stronger inside of Act 1. Coolheaded obviously outscales it into the endgame when the 6 damage becomes irrelevant, but I think I'm actually maybe going to do a hot take here and put it slightly above Coolheaded, just because of how good it is early. And it's not like it really falls off in the endgame. Still generating the Frost is quite powerful, but it's a lot more universal than I think Coolheaded is, especially early. And I've stopped picking Coolheaded as much unless I have like a speculative turbo on the deck, which again, I do sometimes now. Okay, Charge Battery, 1 energy, gain 7 block, next turn, gain energy. This is a very, very premium block common. Slay the Spire does a very common thing where there's one turn that's not super hard and then one turn that is extremely hard. They take like turns off to debuff you and then hit you for a lot. This is helping to cover that, and kind of why also like Equilibrium and Convergence and these things that say retain and generate energy, invoke, capture spirit, whatever, these sorts of combos, right? Where you take like a turn off to set up your next turn and then have a really good next turn is pretty important. Sometimes you just need to cover these like really, really disgusting turns. Like for example, the Dorito on the multi-hit turn is way harder to deal with than the other turns. And this is true for like basically almost every boss in the entire game. And really easy to pick inside of early game. I love Charge Battery. I think it's incredibly, incredibly good. Maybe a hot take to put this here. I think these are all very, very similar strengths, these three here. But Charge Battery is excellent, excellent, excellent block common. And probably picked over Coolheaded on floor 1, like almost always. Unless I'm in like a really easy act and I have like a really strong Niao bonus or something. But yeah, these are all just excellent, excellent common cards. Defect, similar to Spire 1, has just a really, really good common pool. And Hello World on this character would be insane. Just really, really good common cards. You see like Barrage and Gopher and Cold Snap, Coolheaded, right? All these things. Okay, Coolant, 1 energy power. At the start of your turn, gain 2 block for each unique orb you have. The upgrade's very good, goes to 3. One of those speculative Capacitor payoffs, I guess. Like if I picked Capacitor early, if this is blocking 6 or 9, it's a very good card. You can think about this as being like 3 Frost Orbs when it's upgraded, kind of, if you can make it block 6 or 9. And that's very strong and can oftentimes be better. A very good dupe target for later. If you are just having 2 orbs, it's very, very good. You will very often have that because Frost Orbs kind of just get in. If you had defrag more frequently, then this is not going to be that powerful, but based on the fact that defrag's rare and this is basically discount defrag, I'm not too upset about it. I think this is pretty easy A tier for me, like top of A. Block powers are just very, very good in this game. You don't get punished for like setting them up, and you often need to just sort of scale into a fight, and this is helping you do that. It's not one of the ultra premium ones. It's not going to go super top end unless you are having like some really interesting run with like 3 or 4 different types of orbs, and this can be blocking 12 potentially or more, but yeah, it doesn't happen very often. I think 6 to 9 is usually the average case. That's still a very, very powerful card. Even when it's not upgraded, blocking 4 a turn is still a very, very good outcome. Okay, Compact. This is pre-nerf, this text here. 1 energy skill, gain 6 block, transform all status cards in your hand into fuel. Fuel now does not draw. It just generates energy. So it is much worse than this was on a previous patch. On the patch before the nerf, this was easily one of the best cards in the character. I think, however, it is still an incredibly important card for solving Aeon Glass. Aeon Glass is just a disgustingly strong enemy compared to the rest of the game. So anything that is a one card like solve or just extremely strong in that fight just gets in the deck. A lot of Defect status generation, I think almost all of it, or all of it actually, goes into your discard pile. And so if you have Compact and like your boost away in your hand, you can't line them up together. It gets a lot harder to do that. So to actually make this function in a deck natively without like an enemy adding statuses into your hand is a lot harder without something like Iteration that helps you draw a ton of cards. So it doesn't happen very often, but it can do stuff in other fights. It does stuff in the Two Mites fight with the horrible statuses that hit you for 6 or whatever. It does stuff inside of the Potato, inside of Act 1. It does things in the Insatiable fight. It does things into Mechanite. There's a lot of fights that add statuses to your hand, and this is a sort of tech card into those specific fights. I don't think I pick this speculatively as much, especially when it comes up against premium cards. So like Boot Sequence, I'm not picking this over, especially early game. Late game, we think about it once it starts getting closer. But I don't mind carrying this around. Like at worst, it's this 6 block card that's like not great, but it's not the worst thing to carry as a brick. There's much worse bricks to carry, like powers that literally don't do anything, like a Creative AI or something. The stuff that makes this good is just super pickable in general. We'll get to that, but I think the status package is very improved from the last time we talked about Defect in general. Like Rocket Punch got buffs, this got buffs, Aeon Glass is in the game. Like that's a huge one. I'm going to put this at bottom of S tier. I think it's important to solve Aeon Glass, and it's something that I pick a lot even after nerfs. Pre-nerf, this is like, again, one of the best cards in the character, just like top of S basically. Okay, next up, Chill. 0 energy skill, channel 1 frost for each enemy, exhaust. The upgrade just removes exhaust here. So it's not doing anything until your second draw pile, but can often be making 2 to 3 frost in a lot of fights. Even in a single target fight, 0 energy make a frost is really good. Like, if that's just what Cold Snap said, Cold Snap would be better, and Chill is better than Cold Snap for this reason. The upgrade only happens if I'm very desperate for frost. I don't have like any other frost in my deck, which has happened. This is very, very easily one of the best cards in the character. Basically just a free power to play that just blocks a ton on the turn you play it, pushes out orbs, works really well with focus, fills your orb slots in general in fights that maybe you can't fill orb slots. If you're getting 2 to 3 orbs out of this, it's just disgustingly good. Can't even be more than that. We have 4 enemy fights and more now. It doesn't need to be doing that, but anytime it's making 2 or more frost, it's just exceptional. Even at 1 frost, it's very, very strong. First frost is really good in this game. So yeah, Chill. S tier, easily. Not going to elaborate too much on that. Okay, this was, I guess, an alphabetized thing that slipped through the cracks, but we can talk about it. First Frost really makes Synchronize good. It says 1 energy, gain 2 focus this turn for each unique orb you have. The upgrade removes exhaust. This is one of the few cards that I think is worth playing around focus-wise. There's a few temp focus things in this game now. This is just the best one of those things. If you have 2 different orb types, getting 4 focus for all your orbs is insane on that turn. If you just have like 2 frost orbs, this is essentially saying 1 energy, blockade, and do damage with whatever other orbs you have. If you have more than that, let's say you have 3 frost orbs and you have orb slots, this is something that you can get down to like a loop and play this like every other turn or every turn, or play it multiple times in a turn, and helps you push a lot of damage very, very quickly. It doesn't take much to make this very broken. This is just S tier. I think it's going below Chill, just because this is one of the main enablers for it. I don't pick this in a hard act if I don't have any synergies with it. But in easy acts, I'm just slamming it even with no other orbs in the deck. Like just base deck, Synchronize floor 1 is pickable in like underdogs if the map is not too bad. If you have any frost orb, it's just very good. Probably just gets in. Insanely strong card. Temp focus is very, very, very good. Darkness, 1 energy skill. Channel 1 dark, trigger passive ability of all dark orbs. The upgrade says do this twice. Broken card. This is one of the main ways that I actually scale damage into endgame. Especially in a Spire 2 world without permanent focus, it's hard to just get like lightning orbs to be your endgame damage, right? So Darkness is doing a lot without focus. When you play this, it just increments all of your dark orbs by 12. That's really broken. And you can get focus and make this better, which makes it even more. But there's a lot of runs where my whole damage plan is like make 2 or 3 dark orbs and just buff them up with darkness. Maybe I hollow this back and play it 2 times in a turn, and I dual cast one of those for like 100. You can do very quick damage with darkness, where Defect often struggles to do quick damage. It kind of takes time to get set up. There's a lot less runs where Defect explodes out of the gate and like kills the enemy in 1 turn compared to something like Clad or Regent. This is one of the ways that Defect can actually do it. If you have a lot of energy, you can pull this back multiple times and just like kind of blow up everything. I might put this over Chill. I think Darkness is a very important card for this character, and you will get punished for not having fast damage in a lot of fights, especially if your plan is just sit around and like block, like Dorito, for example. You need to push damage. It's often worth playing Darkness as a skill, even if it makes you take more damage. And that says something in that fight, because a lot of skills are just not worth playing in that fight. Like, I'm not really playing Coolheaded in Dorito unless I have like permanent focus or something. Darkness is worth playing because it just gets you out of the fight so much faster and helps against decimillipedes, which are a huge problem. Kills every single boss at the end of Act 1, kills most of the bosses in there for the rest of the game with a little bit of support. Sometimes this can do it alone. This is like solving boss damage, solving so much. Dark Orbs are just so good in this game, and it makes me really miss Recursion. But yeah, very good card. Okay, double energy, 1 energy skill, double your energy exhaust. Not a particularly exciting skill, can be really broken with certain interactions like Ice Cream, with other energy. With the upgrade that makes it cost 0, it gets much easier to play on 3 energy because you go from 3 to 6 rather than going from 3 to 4. So it's a big energy upgrade if you need it, especially if you're on 3 energy. If you're on 4 energy, it's just a very good card in general. And this is funneling into the idea of Defect having these big explosive turns, right? Where you play double energy and you have a million draw cards and you just go in. Defect can really take advantage of that. So I think double energy, probably top of B tier for me. I like it just because I like having explosive energy on this character, but I do think that there's other cards that do this job better, and we'll get to that. Okay, Echo Form, 3 energy, power, ethereal. The first card you play each turn is played an extra time. Anyone that's played with this knows how broken this is. This is probably the best card in the character. I think this is the one thing that's making it so that other things aren't in that conversation. This solves basically every fight's output on its own. It's not really just playing an extra card an extra time. It is playing the best card in your hand an extra time, which is often worth more than like 1 energy every turn. That can often be 2 or 3 energy every turn and just very quickly wins fights on its own. Your entire plan can just be get this into play and win. So yeah, broken card. Please just pick it on sight. Even without self-repair nonsense buffing this up, it's just really, really strong. Okay, Helix Drill, 0 energy, deal 3 damage for each energy previously spent this turn. This is a multi-hit attack, so with enchantments gets a lot better, with strength gets a lot better. Against Aeon Glass, if you can spend a ton of energy in a turn, can be something that actually pops off. I think I slept on this card a little bit last time I saw this. It can be very, very good if you can make a lot of energy, which Defect often can. There's a lot of ways you can have huge energy turns and spend all of the energy very easily with a lot of burst draw and burst energy. So I think I'm going to put this in B tier. I don't think it's super common that it's like the most broken thing ever, and it is a rare card, so it gets docked a bit, but it's very good. Okay, Defrag, 1 energy, power, gain 1 focus. This is like the only permanent focus outside of focus potions, the only permanent focus from cards in this game. The upgrade goes to 2 focus. Very, very important upgrade. This card is one of the cards that makes me see it and say I won the run. Maybe second best card in the character. It's very, very good. It's extremely, extremely good. Focus is just so abusable. This often is just insta-picked over whatever it's up against, unless you're seeing like Echo Form or you're in immediate danger and you don't have any orb slots. But I will go to extreme lengths to carry a defrag, such as like dodging 3 elites in order to carry it. You often don't have to do that because it's very strong, even short term. Almost always, if you have any sort of frost, this is just immediately broken. Even without it, it's just so strong. Like working with glass orbs really well, working with lightning really well, working with every kind of orb, dark orb even. The only one is just not plasma, but yeah, broken card. All for 1. 2 energy, attack, deal 10 damage, put all 0 cost cards from your discard pile into your hand. I really didn't like this card in Spire 1. And fortunately in Spire 2, I think the 0 cost package has gotten a lot better. There's a lot of things I actually care about pulling back now, and making a ton of energy and just spending a ton of energy like the Helix Drill and going in. And I'm often carrying these 0 cost cards around more often now. It also lets me do a lot of like artifact strip stuff. Like if I have like 2 gophers or I have a beam cell and a gopher or whatever into Aeon Glass, I can play both of them, strip artifacts, play all for 1, then actually put weakness down and just get through the artifact stacks pretty quickly. And that's pretty important to do because if you're relying on like 1 null for weakness, you're not going to be getting into a point where you can actually strip artifact. It's really hard. You need multiple ways to do it, and applying weakness is very important on the enemy. So I think all for 1 is a lot better. It's not like snap picked speculatively. I think you need some stuff for this to be good. If you have like Flash of Steel, Finesse, Boost Away, whatever, FTL, it gets in often enough, especially if you see it inside of Act 1. If it gets seen up against the really broken stuff like Defrag and Echo Form, there's not a snowball's chance in hell, but it's close. I think I'm gonna put this top of B. It can be better than this. It has a high ceiling, kind of low floor. If it's not pulling back anything, 10 damage, 2 energy is a really bad card, but it can very often be much better than this. Okay, Feral, 2 energy, power. The first time you play a 0 cost attack each turn, return it to your hand. This is, I think, not nearly as strong as Echo Form, but it's somewhat similar. It's just like a Echo Form for 0 cost attacks. Unfortunately, I don't think that's super important. It can do some funny stuff. There is namely one interaction with Rocket Punch that I want to highlight, is it will still pull the Rocket Punch back to your hand. And Rocket Punch is a very strong card when it says 14 damage, draw 2 on it. The Rocket Punch will pull back to your hand and cost 2 because you've already used the one time like cost 0 effect. But if you can discount it again and keep going, it gets really strong. So I think that's really where Feral is shining the most. Maybe with Flash of Steel or something, but I think Rocket Punch is really the strongest interaction with this. Also can help strip artifact if you're relying on like a gopher to strip the artifact, but often is not like super broken or anything. I think this is like slightly worse than Creative AI often, and I think All for One is just easier to use compared to this. The upgrade goes to 1 energy, which is pretty important for getting into play, but yeah, not very often that I actually want this too much. I think that Defect's broken cards are just way too broken. Okay, Fusion, 1 energy skill, channel 1 plasma, exhaust. This is kind of like playing 1 extra energy for the rest of the fight if you have orb slots. If you don't have orb slots, it can get evoked, which is sometimes a bad thing, sometimes a good thing. If you have a lot of use for burst energy, this can be very good. Like if you can do fusion into dual cast on the plasma or fusion into multicast on the plasma, it's very good. This got a buff from the last time. It used to cost 2 and go to 1, and now it says it removes exhaust instead. So it's much more playable 1 energy. Oftentimes I just want to play it once anyways. And if I do have orb slots, like I have a capacitor and I don't really fill a ton of orbs, like I have like 2 or 3 frost orbs and I sit on like 1 fusion, 1 plasma, having 1 extra energy for the rest of the fight is very strong. I've had a lot of runs where this is just solving output for a while. And I think this is much better. I think Defect often wants burst energy more than this, and this is hard to become burst energy. It can be with a lot of hoops to jump through. It is just energy throughout a long fight and sometimes gets, expended and you don't use it again, and that's fine. But it's a little bit worse than I think like Turbo or some of these other things that make a ton of energy right away. So I'm going to put it like probably below double energy, I think. It is good in a lot of situations, but in the situations where it's not very good, you don't want to even have this in your hand. It's just a curse at that point. It doesn't do anything the turn you play it unless you can actually evoke it. So it is definitely just a setup card, and oftentimes if you're evoking it the next turn, sometimes you can't even spend all the energy, especially early game. Pretty hard to rely on. Okay, Focus Strike. 1 energy, deal 9 damage, gain 1 focus this turn. I was picking this like on release, and I think now I've basically stopped picking it altogether. It needs the upgrade to get 2 temp focus, which I think is very important. At 1 focus, it's just not doing enough, and needs frost orbs and a lot of other things to become good. And if you are picking this, it means you are bricking drawing into your frost orbs in the first place, and I'd rather just kind of play those. I think it's just not worth the payoff, and late game it's just not going to be good enough, and early game the temp focus is not a strong enough effect to justify it. I'd much rather just pick almost anything else to just do damage. So I think this unfortunately is going into like D tier. Top of D tier, it's better than Claw probably, but it's a pretty bad card in my opinion now. Okay, next up, Glacier, 2 energy, gain 6 block, channel 2 frost. Okay, everyone knew where this is going. It's really good. Glacier's broken, guys. Like, channeling 2 frost is one of the strongest effects you can do. We talked about this with Chill. Attached to 6 block is just a very good effect. Sometimes you just need to fill your orb slots, and that's it. Super broken. If you have any focus at all, if you have Synchronize, if you have Defrag, whatever, if you have any orb slots, this is like one of the best things you can possibly see. Coolant, whatever, it works with everything, does not matter. Even if you have Bulk Up, playing it afterwards just evokes more frost faster, and that is just gross. Okay, Gunk Up, 1 energy, attack. Deal 4 damage 3 times, add a slime into your discard pile. Okay, maybe people didn't expect this. This is one of the better common attacks now, I think. Scales with strength, scales with bulk up, and I actually do play around the status package a lot more often now. Basically, all the status cards are very pickable now, and Gunk Up just deals a lot of damage for 1 energy without needing the upgrade, and just continues to work with synergies. Any Trash to Treasure, any Rocket Punch, these sorts of things. It's just like picked easily, and activating these later on. Slimed is one of the better statuses because you can actually play it to draw. Yeah, pretty interesting card now. It's not like the most broken thing of all time. But I will pick this early, like fairly frequently. So I think it's like bottom of A, maybe top of B, which is something I didn't expect to be saying when I made the initial tier list. This is just like actually way better than I thought it was. Way better. My propaganda has work, says JMac. I don't know if it's really propaganda, if it's actually just better than I thought it was, right? Is it propaganda if it's just kind of true? It works with enchantments. It works with strength. It scales all the status packages. It opens you up into all these things. Just seems kind of good, right? Like, it just kind of good. Okay. Next up, Hailstorm. 1 energy power. At the end of your turn, if you have Frost, deal 6 damage to all enemies. Defect struggles to find AoE in Spire 1, and that's not really different in this game. You have a lot more options. This is just one of the better ones. You may look at this and think that the number is not very good, but think about what 6 AoE really is every single turn, and the fact that it activates the turn you play it is very, very good. I'm going to put this at like top of A next to Coolant, probably. It gets to a point in like mid to end game where it's just not very good. But inside of early game, this is like doing everything you want it to do. And inside of Act 2 is also very, very strong. If you upgrade this goes to 8, and multiple copies of it also works really nicely together. So if you have like 2 copies of this and they're both upgraded, like 16 AoE a turn is insane. You can spend all your energy blocking and just make a lot of progress. Decim Millipedes just fold. This just kills a lot of enemies, more than you would expect. Kills the potato. It's just a lot of output for 1 energy. Even if this goes off like 2-3 turns, 1 energy to like 18 is very strong. Okay, next up, FTL, 0 energy. Attack, deal 5 damage. If you have played fewer than 3 cards this turn, draw 1 card. This is something that works with Feral nicely. It works with All for One. Scales all your like kunai, shuriken, whatever, like 3-hit relics really nicely. Generally just pretty free. The bad thing with this is the Echo Form interaction, because I don't want to be playing FTL with Echo Form. I want to be drawing like my broken card into playing that, right? So I think FTL is just an insanely powerful card. I wouldn't say it's S tier because it's not run warping, but it is most of the time just free damage with some downside and can open some nice stuff up. Lets you control your shuffle and like Frog Parasite a little bit. That's sometimes enough utility. I mean, most of the time it's just free damage. We don't have to talk about it too much. It's not super interesting. It's just probably not a clone target. I don't really want to be cloning this. I'm struggling to think of like other interactions that are like really broken with it. But yeah, Feral, nice enough. Just draw an extra card every turn. Pretty chill. Okay, Hotfix, 0 energy, gain 2 focus this turn, exhaust. The upgrade now removes exhaust. I think on the last tier list it was 3 focus, and it never exhausted. This is much worse than I think it was before, and also just I think worse due to understanding of the game. This temp focus stuff is not as important as it used to be, I don't think. There's other ways to scale block rather than just going frost focus now, and there's other ways to scale damage rather than like using this to buff up your orbs. It doesn't work with loop in a nice way. It doesn't like increment your dark orbs in that, which would be a way that would be really cool if it did work with loop. Just seems kind of whatever. I think it's hard to pick early game. You just need to draw your frost and then you can play this. But oftentimes, if that's the case, I'd rather just draw my frost in the first place. There's just other more important things to be doing on this character now. It's pretty sad to say, but I really don't pick this very often anymore. There's spots for it if you have like excess draw and maybe like some Coolheadeds or something, but you kind of need like 2 frost orbs before I even want to bother playing it. And even then, meh. This is probably like C tier for me. Definitely a big fall from grace here, for sure. Okay, next up, go for the eyes. 0 energy, deal 3 damage. If the enemy intends to attack, apply 1 weak. This upgrades to 4 damage and 2 weak. Weakness is good. That's why this is so much better than Beam Cell. The keyword is just stronger on this character because I'm doing damage with orbs, but weakness is just always powerful. This is probably just A tier. I don't think we're putting it over like the really broken stuff, maybe. I probably don't pick it over Ball Lightning early, but endgame, it gets picked over Ball Lightning very frequently. So it depends on where you are in the run. This is why in tier lists, I always say just like use them with a grain of salt. Listen to what someone is saying when they're discussing the cards, more so than just looking at the placement to decide when you're going to pick it. It's easy to pick inside of early game and pretty good late game. Sometimes you need to pick Ball Lightning and these other cards above it, over it. Sometimes you pick Gunk Up over it if you're really desperate for damage. But weakness is just really good. If you don't have weakness, probably try to get weakness. It's just broken. Okay, Buffer, 2 energy power, prevent the next time you lose HP. Very strong upgrade, makes it go to 2 instances. So this can block 60 or more. It's not often that that's doing that, but like against the crab, against Insatiable, against a lot of bosses in general, against like these guys that are just hitting you for a big number, this is blocking way, 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 way too much and lets you deploy like your Frost Orbs or your Darkness without taking a bunch of damage. It is basically just a power that reads a block card. It is just a front load with block power, which is different from a lot of powers, but it is very important that Defect has front load block, as we previously discussed. Probably just throwing this into S tier. Let's go like here. Pretty important to not take damage getting set up on this character, and I think that's a big win. Okay, fight through. 1 energy, skill, gain 13 block, add 2 wounds into your discard pile. So again, this does work with all the status stuff. If you have iteration, this is insta-picked, and iteration is something I speculate on quite frequently. I haven't had this very much recently, but I still think the card is pretty good. It's a lot worse now that Compact doesn't draw, because oftentimes if I'm drawing statuses and turn them into fuel and they only make energy, I need draw to go along with it, which iteration really good at doing, Overclock really good at doing, a lot of these like Coolheaded plus whatever, these sorts of things, good at spending energy. Fight through is a little bit harder to speculate on and pick early because it can brick you, but oftentimes fights are short enough that it doesn't matter that you're adding 2 wounds into your deck. I feel strange putting this anywhere other than like bottom of A. We'll probably throw it over Gunk Up for now. It's a pretty good card, needs a little bit of work, but is easy enough to pick. Like, most fights don't even last your entire first deck cycle. You can usually end fights before you even shuffle. If you are shuffling, then hopefully you've gotten something that works with this. Okay, Null. 2 energy attack, deal 10 damage, apply 2 weak, channel 1 dark. This is one of the most broken cards in the character. Weakness alongside making a Dark Orb is a very good combination of things. The reason for that is because you need to sort of sit around and let your Dark Orb cook and block to make the Dark Orb big enough to actually win the fight. On top of that, it's making a Dark Orb and doing damage, which are all things you want early. And weakness is a really broken keyword. This upgrades to 3 weak, which is insane. This is like easily top tier. Basically slam on sight. I'm not picking this over Glacier probably because Frost Orbs are just invaluable. But against like Chill and some other Frost, I'm definitely having to think about it. If I see it against like Cold Snap Coolheaded early, it's 100% just getting Null every single time. Weakness is just way too important. And Defect, in Spire 1, the only source of weakness was Go for the Eyes. If you didn't have Gopher, you just didn't have a weak. Part of the reason why Defect is so much stronger in this game is because you have access to something like this card. And Defect, when you have weakness, means your passive block from your Frost Orbs is just going to be that much better. You're just getting to a point where the enemy's number is not so big that you have to really have a lot of focus and scale. You can just weaken them and then block with like passive 6 to 8 a turn or whatever. That's like good enough. Okay, Glasswork. 1 energy, gain 5 block, channel 1 glass. I haven't picked this card in a while, to be honest. Theoretically, it's like decent, but I just have been seeing it inside of Act 1 and then just being like, I don't really need this. I can often solve AoE in other ways without having to rely on this 1 Glass Orb. I think there's other cards that do this job better. And an Overgrowth doesn't feel really that necessary. It feels like you need focus for this 1 Glass Orb to be that good. I generally want to like make it and then evoke it or like dual cast it immediately. I think Refract is a much better card than this. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to dock this a little bit. I just don't love it as much as I used to. Maybe I'm underrating it. It's very possible. I just haven't seen it in a lot of spots where I want it anymore. In late game, I just never want it. And I think that's definitely like putting it under Compile, maybe under Hotfix and Beam Cell, to be honest. It just feels like I'm never getting to a point where I want this in the deck very quickly. Like in a couple of floors, it gets to that point. And I think I would click a lot of cards over it on floor 1, like Charge Battery and some other things too. Okay, Loop. 1 energy, power. At the start of your turn, trigger the passive ability of your rightmost orb. This works really well with Dark Orbs, but even if this is just working on Frost Orbs, again, this is sort of just like Coolant. It just like blocks 4 or something. It does really want the upgrade. I think doubling the output on this is really important, and looping Dark Orbs can push damage very quickly and make it so that you actually have damage to meet some of these damage races in endgame against like Aeon Glass and Test Subject. I think this is a pretty important card for Defect. It's worse than it was in Spire 1 because it works nicely with focus, but I don't think that makes it worse so much necessarily. We'll put it at like bottom of S tier. I did think I underrated this last time probably because it is so much worse than Inspire 1, but it turns out that you just don't need that much passive output in this game to start getting to a point where you win, and it does feel like the Dark Orb stuff is just so strong. I'm basically picking Dark Orbs on site always, and that makes Loop much, much better. And you have a lot of control over what you need to do. I mentioned earlier about how Spire has this thing where you sort of have a good turn and then a bad turn, or a bad turn into a good turn based on the enemies. Like they give you a turn off and then hit you really hard. And loop is very variable. So like when the enemy is hitting you really hard, you can set up like your Dark Orb to cook on the off turn. And when it's going to like set up to hit you really hard, you loop your Frost in front and then you block for more. So it's very flexible and rewards player skill. And that's something that's like fun about loop, I think. And also just a very good effect in general. Boost away, 0 energy skill, gain 6 block, add a daze into your discard pile. This is front load block on a character that really likes front load block, and often statuses are kind of just positive now. I don't think this is as strong as I think Open thinks this is really strong, like a big believer in this card, but I think this is somewhere in like A tier. It's just a front load block card. Against Charge Batter, I probably don't pick it, but works really nicely with something like Bulk Up, for example. We'll put this under Fight Through, I think. But yeah, it works with Bulk Up. Like you play Bulk Up, you spend a lot of energy on that turn, then you play your Boost Away for 0 energy. It blocks like 9. That's pretty good. It helps you play your powers. Defect often wants to do that. Gets pulled back with All for 1. That's another really cool interaction. Helps you do everything you're trying to do. Opens up some synergy packages. It's good to like have speculatively, mostly because it's fine on its own independently from status package, but then it opens up a lot of the status package for you later, which I think is important now. It's actually important that you can open status stuff on this character rather than just doing Frost Focus every run. Okay, Leap, 1 energy, skill, gain 9 block. Very, very simple card. We don't have to elaborate it on too much. I think it's just sort of like a mediocre block common. It's better than a lot of the stuff, especially inside of early game. So we'll throw this like bottom of B tier. It gets picked over these sorts of things. Inside of Underdogs, just sort of picks if you see it on floor 1, even picked in Overgrowth. Just want to add a block card immediately to the starting deck because Defect just has too many things that don't say block on them. And so it really feels like the first block card you add is just stopping you from taking damage in hallways. And it doesn't really matter what it is. You just need to add something that blocks for like more than 6. A lot of the block cards like Lightning Rod or whatever that only block 4 doesn't really fix that problem quite as much. You're still going to be taking chip, but Leap seems to actually solve it. Okay, Genetic Algo. 1 energy, skill, gain 1 block, permanently increase this card's block by 3. Exhaust. Please don't put permanently no exhausting on this and stall until this goes to 999. It's really sad and kind of degenerate. It is really broken though, so it's like top of S tier. Front load block broken. This thing easily reads 30 plus by the end game. It can be more if you have Echo Form. You can Echo Form it. Dear God, help me. Getting flashbacks to Spire 1 stalling for hours and hours and hours. Yeah, don't do that. But it's broken. If you can clone it, probably you're just winning too, which is hilarious. Not necessarily like clone as an actual clone, but like dupe it with mirror or something. Like it's just way too much. Way too much output. And basically says pass the turn, the enemy never does damage to you. That's really dumb. Okay, Ice Lance, 3 energy, attack, deal 19 damage, channel 3 frost. This is 3 cold snaps plus 1 damage, and they're all in a trench coat together. Turns out that's a pretty good card. I'm going to throw this into like S tier. It's doing a lot of damage, and Defect likes these dense cards because you're kind of just like able to do some funny stuff with this, with Uproar, namely. This is a real solution now sometimes. You just pick chunky attacks and pick Uproars, and that is a real thing that happens in a lot of runs. Uproars just sort of gets in the deck now, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But Ice Lance is a very solid attack. If you get this off of like the Ancient Relic in Act 3 that just generates attacks for you, very strong crossbow. Defect often with crossbow is just invincible because of these sorts of massive attacks. The attack pool on Defect is just quite good, which is kind of funny. But a lot of the attacks just say block on them. Like this says block, Cold Snap says block, Go for the Ice says block. There's just a lot of attacks that do way more. Null says block. I don't know. It's a very strong card. If you pick this inside of Act 1, it's basically solving the act for you. And works with all the focus stuff. So really nice Echo Form target. That's another reason why Defect love these like big chunky cards. It gets easier to play because you have all these energy generating cards. The second you have Ice Lance in the deck, you can sort of just slam turbos. You can slam double energies, and it's not going to brick you ever because you have this like disgustingly strong card to play with it. Just kind of cool. Okay, next up, Lightning Rod. 1 energy skill, gain 4 block. At the start of your next 2 turns, channel 1 lightning. I think this card's kind of weird. It's slept on a little bit. I think people underrate it, but I don't think that makes it good. I think people think it's really bad, and it is kind of like mediocre to the bad side of things. Block plus dealing damage for no energy the next couple turns is pretty nice. If you evoke the lightnings, it's a lot of damage and pretty easy to pick inside of early game. Again, first block card just sort of gets in. It's not going to stop you from taking all the chip in the world, but it will do something. Nice enough to just be able to fill orb slots, feeds your barrage. that's something that's just getting picked constantly. So I think this is like top of C tier. I think I'd probably pick it more than Compile Driver. Unsure of that, but they're close. Both just kind of situational cards. Like, I don't really care which one you say is better than the other. It doesn't matter too much. It's just more that it's just not picked super often. But it is better than you probably think it is. Okay, Hologram, 1 energy, skill, gain 3 block, put a card from your discard pile into your hand, exhaust. In contention for the most overrated card in the game next to Grave Blast, probably. A lot of people love this effect. I don't think this effect is as good as most people think it is. Spending 1 energy to do this, you need something really actually good to be pulling back for this. And the upgrade is almost entirely unnecessary unless you know that you're going to be looping it multiple times. I had someone ask about that earlier, but it's just not a very good upgrade. It is a 2-block upgrade. Most fights do not last long enough for you to see the redraw on this. And if you are setting up, you probably don't even need it. You will know if you're doing stuff that requires combos like Rocket Punch with status stuff, Compact is in the deck, Turbo is in the deck, right? These sorts of things make this way better. But I think that it was pretty widely understood at the end of Spire 1 that Hologram was not as good as people thought it was. I think we have arrived at that conclusion, and it's still true in Spire 2. There are decks that want 2 copies of Holo, but I've seen people jam like 4, 5, 6 copies of this card into their deck and just brick themselves. So please don't do that. First copy, generally pretty okay over skip especially. You don't really get punished for bricking as much in this game as you did in Spire 1, but it's not as broken as a lot of other things, so you probably pick other things over it pretty frequently. I do think it is like top of B tier, probably. You can do some funny stuff with it. A lot of the zero cost stuff is quite nice with it. Lining up the Rocket Punch with like status stuff, you can pull either your Rocket Punch or you can pull the status card, or you can pull the Compact with your statuses, or you can pull a status with your Compact, right? You can do some funny stuff. Don't overpick this card. It's pretty decent, but it is not like exceptional by any means. Definitely not picking it over like real block cards like Charge Battery or something. It's not that good in the end game compared to just having something like this generate value for you over the entire run. Can line up some other stuff. Spire 1, we had like Amplify that needed to be like played next to a power, and that was like important. We don't even have that problem because the Amplify version in this game just lasts across turns. The main thing is if you have Turbo or you have like Chill that's upgraded, or Synchronize that you're looping that's also upgraded. There's overstated cards that you want to play more than once, but it's not that frequent that you do have those things. So yeah, just don't overpick it. Okay, Iteration, 1 energy, power. The first time you draw a status card each turn, draw 2 cards. This is a very, 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 very good card. I think I'm putting this like top of A tier. It's higher than it used to be because I pick the status stuff more often. I think there's other things more important than it. Like the stuff in S tier is more run warping. Maybe drop FTL actually. I don't think FTL is as needed as these sorts of things. It's close to being S, but I don't think it's quite there. If you don't have the status stuff, like against Aeon Glass, it adds it straight into your hand, so it helps you on the redraw. But there's a lot of fights that add statuses straight to your hand, and it's not really doing anything. It can brick you for a while. If you have a lot of the stuff, you know, boost aways, whatever, your status package already, it's helping you line up those things. So like Rocket Punch is in the deck, Compact's in the deck, Iteration just gets in. You can speculate on it. You can just pick it early and carry it, but I do want to say that it will be a brick for a while. It is not often doing stuff, and again, most fights do not need the second deck cycle to be very good. You usually solve fights before the second deck cycle, but like a lot of the Act 2 elites is pretty decent into the B guy, whatever. The hallways, I should say. Some fights do go long enough where it matters, but it's just not actually going to be solving short-term issues for you very often. Again, all of Defect status generation goes into the discard pile, so if you are not seeing your second draw pile, it's just a brick in your first one. It is worth carrying, but do not overpick it. If you're seeing it next to something that will solve short-term immediate problems, probably don't speculate on it. It's not that good. I just want to warn people when I'm talking about stuff in A tier and S tier, don't think it just means auto pick broken. It's not, but it is quite good and helps a lot in Aeon Glass, which is one of the most difficult things in the entire game for any character. Okay, Rocket Punch, 2 energy attack, deal 13 damage, draw 1 card. Whenever you create a status, reduce this card's cost to 0 until played. This works even if it is not in your hand when you do it, which is why it is so much better now. This deals 14 damage and draws 2 on the upgrade. The upgrade's very good just for the draw. And you can play multiple copies of Rocket Punch. You can pull it back and play it multiple times. You can use Feral with it. I think this is like actually just an exceptional card. Maybe not S. I think that's like overreacting a little bit. But I've picked like Rocket Punch minuses over some like Coolheaded pluses or something. This works if you make a status on turn 1 and then draw Rocket Punch turn 2. It's just stupid. It's really good. It's really, 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 really good. is one of the main ways that status decks can actually draw through their statuses and like lineup combos, and just works even without needing to line up those two things in the same hand. It's very good. Rocket Punch works with All for One. Rocket Punch works with Feral. Just really, really good card. Okay, Flak Cannon. 2 energy attack, exhaust all your status cards. Deal 8 damage to a random enemy for each card exhausted. This is Aeon Glass, just like Silver Bullet, basically. I'm bumping this up to like top of A, I think. This is probably worse than Rocket Punch in the vast majority of fights, but you can sort of just slam every turbo, every boost away, whatever, make a million statuses and just Flak Cannon it. You don't even really need that many statuses. There's a lot of enemies that you're just happy to have this in your hand. The Mites in Act 2, the Aeon Glass for a lot, the Insatiable. I've seen so many Reddit posts and people in my chat and stuff talk about how Flak Cannon is bad and Insatiable. It's not. It's extremely good. Please play it. You play your Frantic Escapes to make them 2 costs, and then you just exhaust all of them. And now you don't have a bunch of curses in your deck, and your deck is good again, and you can actually win the fight. It is extremely, extremely easy to speculate on this and carry it just as a brick because it is so good in the end game that it means you don't need that much more to beat Aeon. There's a lot of fights where it just straight up does nothing. That's fine. The fights that it does solve are very difficult, and those are the ones we tend to care about. It can let you just play all of your attacks inside of the B guy and then just exhaust all of them and kill it outright. Very, very strong card. Okay. Thunder. 1 energy. Whenever you evoke lightning, deal 6 damage to each enemy hit. I very rarely have a ton of lightning in decks. Without a lot of focus, you're not really doing that stuff anymore. There's like 1 relic, like your ancient relic in Act 2 that gives you 3 lightning orbs, but I don't pick this very often. I don't even take that relic when I see it most of the time. It's just that lightning orbs are kind of like the worst orb. So I'm not really trying to like build around lightning like ever. I don't even know why Voltaic was nerfed the first time because I just never had Voltaic like go in a way that was like cool. I guess you can get like glam on Voltaic or something, but this is easily one of the worst cards. I think if you have like a ball lightning, maybe it's probably better than like claw. Like we can throw it like top of D tier. I'm struggling to think of a use case for this. Even with Tempest, I don't really care. I'm not picking Tempest very often. I'm not multicasting lightning. I'm multicasting something else most of the time. So I'm really struggling to see where this is ever going to be important. Almost ever. Okay, next up, Shadow Shield, 2 energy skill, gain 11 block, channel 1 dark. Dark Orbs, really broken. Block with Dark Orbs, really broken for reasons I already discussed before. This is a very, very, very exceptionally strong card. Block, dense block especially, and something that's good with Echo Form never hurts, but just being able to generate any Dark Orb at all kills most bosses. And it's still good in hallways. It's just good in every kind of fight you could possibly conjure in this game. It's just damage and block at the same time. Really, really strong. Just please pick this first copy. If you do not have other Dark Orbs, it will just pop off. Don't need to elaborate on it too much. I think it's a very boring effect, but it is quite powerful. Okay, Turbo, 0 energy skill, gain 2 energy, add avoid into your discard pile. This has gotten a lot better since last time I talked about it. I think Turbo is maybe one of the best energy generating cards, if not the best. It is definitely better than even like Supercritical in a lot of decks because it's reusable and it procs your Rocket Punch. Rocket Punch and Turbo go together like so insanely well. You generate energy and you draw cards at the same time to spend on the stuff. And oftentimes, again, you don't care about your status is going to the discard pile because the fight ends. So you just play Turbo, you get all your stuff set up, you just blitz through your deck, you can upgrade it, you can just play a million Coolheadeds, you can pull it back with Hologram. That's one of the main reasons why Hologram gets in, is that you have like a Turbo or a Turbo Plus, and you make a ton of energy and just draw through your whole deck. So having Turbo, I will honestly just kind of pick draw cards and speculate on Turbos even before I have any reason to have it in the deck. And it hasn't really punished me, I don't think. I've picked multiple copies of Turbo inside of Act 1 with like 2 Coolheadeds. I did that today. It's just really, really strong. Don't pick it over actual broken stuff, especially early. It's not actually doing anything until you see other pieces. Like Turbo can often just result in 0 card plays or result in a card play that's not important, like a striker or defender or something, very frequently. But once you start having any expensive cards, you get an Ice Lance, you get a Null, you get a Glacier, you get anything that costs 2, or you get any draw at all, and Turbo's just insanely good. It's just quite good. It's not contributing to early game and can brick you on your block. So be very careful, especially on like floor 1. Picking Turbo is not something that you should do very frequently, especially if it comes up next to like Charge Battery or something. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people probably make because energy seems really appealing. I definitely did that in Spire 1 when I was newer, but pick cards that actually do output and then pick the energy later. It's not as important to generate a ton of energy as it is to just have the good cards in your deck. But it very quickly becomes very broken. So this is why it's not S tier, but it is very close to it. Okay, Momentum Strike. This just got a buff. I think this has 11 to 15 on the current patch. It's 1 energy, deal 11 damage, reduces card's cost to 0 energy. Momentum Strike can do funny stuff with like Hologram or whatever. I think it's just overall not a very strong card, especially early game, compared to like a lot of other things that do less damage, like Cold Snap and Ball Lightning. Like Ball Lightning probably does more damage than this, and you don't see your second draw pile very often, and Cold Snap blocks. So it's not going to do that much for you. It's just a very basic strike card, just raw damage, but Defect often doesn't need that because you're so strong, and I think there's a lot of other ways that you can do damage on this character. So probably C tier. It's a lot better than it was. Probably under compile for me. It has a decent damage upgrade. 1 energy deal 15 turning to 0 energy deal 15 is not horrible. It's just kind of bad. I guess not bad Streamline, but it's comparable to Streamline in Spire 1, which was also kind of a meh card. We know how that sort of card works, and it's just something you never want to pick. Sometimes you have to, but I always try to avoid picking it unless I'm literally dying without it. Okay, modded, 0 energy skill, gain 1 orb slot, draw 1 card, increases cards cost by 1. The upgrade is very good, goes to draw 2 cards. Part of Defect's just I draw a million cards, spend all my energy package. Very, very strong card. Orb slots are very good. Probably like right below Alga, maybe below Darkness. I don't think this is like one of the best cards in the character because filling orb slots is more important than actually having the orb slots in the first place. So a lot of these cards that have very broken orbs, much better than modded, and can be kind of bad if you're trying to evoke dark orbs and like can't push out your orbs fast enough. If you have a small deck and you only have like 1 orb card that you're trying to play a bunch, it can make it so you can like never evoke your dark orbs. But that's a pretty niche situation. If you have like 2, 3, 4 orbs in your deck, it's probably just picked. And if you see it over skip, it's 100% just like picked. You can speculate on it becoming good, even if it's like negative for you now or not very good. It's not often that it's even negative. So I think we don't need to talk too much about that situation. It's just that it's possible. Do be careful about it when you have dark orbs, especially, and need to evoke them. You can just get into trouble. And it's kind of the same thing with Inserter in Spire 1 for anyone that played that game. If you have Inserter and you have a dark orb, you know how hard it can be to actually evoke your dark orb. So be very careful with that. You can obviously choose to not play it, but if I have it in the deck, I probably want to be playing it. Usually just very broken though. Orb slots are hard to get, and once you have them, they're usually very, very strong. Okay, Rainbow. Skill, 2 energy, channel, 1 lightning, 1 frost, 1 dark, exhaust. The upgrade goes to not exhaust, which does become useful sometimes. Filling orbs is good, but I think this is one of the worst orb fill cards. It's better than it was in Spire 1 for sure, because dark is so much better, and it's easier to put something like this into play. If you have like Intimidating Helmet, it gets much easier. But yeah, Desperation, Dark Orb to kill a boss. There's just other ways to get Dark Orbs that I care more about. I think I'll probably pick it more than these cards over here, like the Helix Drill and the Consuming Shadow. So probably middle of the road B tier for me, but not an exceptional card at all. Generally, if you're playing something like this, I would much rather have something like Shadow Shield, where I just get 11 block and channel to 1 dark, because I care more about the Dark Orb and Rainbow than most of the other orbs. Maybe the Frost in the dark. If I want a Frost Orb, I'd rather have Glacier or like Coolheaded or something. So there's other cards to do what Rainbow does better. It's kind of just like doing a bad job at doing a bunch of different stuff, which usually you'd rather have the card that's specialized in doing the thing. Again, Desperation picks exist in this game, and you do need to pick them, but it's not great. Okay, Tesla Coil, 0 energy, attack, deal 3 damage, trigger all lightning against the enemy. This upgrades now to trigger all lightning against the enemy twice. Scales with focus. Pretty cool. It's a fun card, really, really fun card. I think this is something you can pick inside of early Act 1 if you have like Ball Lightning on floor 1. So if you have Ball Lightning and this is seen in a couple floors after that, it's a very strong pickup. If you're triggering 2 lightning against the enemy for 0 energy, this is like 9 damage, which is quite good for 0. It can scale, it can do some funny stuff. Most of the time it doesn't get truly broken, and I'm not loading up on lightning. But if you're consistently having 2 lightning floating around, it's not so bad. I think this is like B tier for me. Gets picked often enough inside of early game, Overgrowth especially. Underdogs, you often don't need this damage, and it's a brick later when you are just evoking all your lightning out and filling your orb slots with something more important like Frost or Dark. But until then, it's a very strong pickup, and sometimes you'll get really funny runs where this is like absolutely carrying you. The upgrade is very strong, so it can be broken, just needs a little bit of hoops to jump through, kind of relies on seeing Ball Lightning or maybe a Lightning Rod before this, and then it will start going in. So not necessarily, mediocre, just has high highs and low lows. So very swingy card. Okay, Tempest. X cost, skill, channel X lightning. Does not exhaust. I actually didn't piece that together in my brain until recently because Spire 1 it did exhaust, but the upgrade goes to X+1. If you have Chemex, very cool. Unfortunately, there's no reinforced body really to abuse Chemex or pick Chemex very often on this character, which that was the main way that you picked it. So you very often do not have the broken stuff with this. And even if you do have Chemex, it's often not that broken. Channeling a bunch of lightning just isn't a very desirable effect. I really want Frost Orbs around. I think this honestly might go bottom of C. It's definitely better than Claw and some other stuff. I've picked it before. If you're in Overgrowth and you just have no damage and you fill all your orb slots, it's going to do some stuff. You can sit around and have 9 passive damage a turn. That's good enough. It's just not super exciting. Okay, Scavenge, 1 energy skill, exhaust a card, next turn gain 2 energy. Defect has a lot better ways of dealing with statuses and dealing with energy generation. This is kind of the worst version of both. Honestly, I miss Recycle. I don't think Recycle was too broken for this game. I think they, in their initial attempt to kill infinites, before the game even came out, they cut Recycle because they thought it led to too many infinites, but they left a million other infinites in the game. So I don't really know why this got such a hit. Not that Defect needs any buffs. I think he's very, very strong, as I mentioned before. But this card is just super clunky. It can do something. Again, Spire does this bad turn into good turn thing for the enemies. So if you have Scavenge on one turn, you can cope, deal with Withers and Aeon Glass. It is super desperate Aeon Glass thing and gives you some output to play high cost cards. But I don't see myself picking this very often. Kind of middle of C tier. Super speculative. Okay, Smokestack, 1 energy power. Whenever you crit a status, deal 5 damage to all enemies. I do the status generating stuff more often. I don't think this is super broken. It does feel really fun to play with, and it's kind of a funny card. But unfortunately, I don't think it's super good or anything. It's just a little bit too slow. Probably close to top of C tier. Takes a little bit to get going. If you are doing a bunch of the status stuff can be good, but early game, if you only have 1 boost away or something, you're not making enough to make this really abusable. You kind of need a critical mass of this. Okay, Synthesis, 2 cost, attack, deal 14 damage. The next power you play costs 0 energy. This can discount your powers. So this can read kind of 1 energy attack or 0 energy attack if you're discounting Echo Form or something. And this did recently get a buff to become 20 damage. So it is a little bit better than it was before. Defect sometimes needs these chunky attacks. Transforming into this, it doesn't feel bad. If you bulk up, it doesn't feel super bad. Other than that, I don't really want to pick it. I think it's early game damage desperation most of the time. Probably just bottom of B tier. It's a big enough number that you don't care. Sometimes you can just slam it. You don't need the powers in the deck, but that is an ultra desperate case. Again, something like Ball Lightning or Cold Snap just wants to be picked way more over this thing, and don't like it very often. Okay, Scrape. 1 energy, attack, deals 7 damage, draw 4 cards, discard all cards drawn this way that do not cost 0. It is a bit better than it was. I still think it's really bad because oftentimes if you're trying to draw into important cards, they don't cost 0. Your important cards often do not. Can work with Rocket Punch, can work with Turbo, can work with some other things, but discarding your Defrag or discarding your Echo Form just puts you way too behind in a fight. If you're relying on any sort of powers like this, just cannot be picked. The damage number is not big enough and the draw is too unreliable to really have this thing be very good. I don't really want this. So D tier, maybe better than Claw, more situationally. I think you can do funny stuff with Synthesis in a Scrape now, but how often are you picking both of those cards together? Well, I hope not very often. Okay, Overclock, 0 energy skill, draw 2 cards, add a burn into your discard pile. As far as the status generating cards go, I think this is probably one of the best ones. Drawing with statuses in your deck is also just really important because you need to line up the combos after you have the statuses, and you need to line up your compact with the stuff. You want to just draw through the garbages. So in that sort of archetype, exceptional and very often can just be picked and is free acceleration to get into your powers early. I think I've gone up way on this card. This is probably just S tier for me now. There's a lot of reasons. One, I'm picking the Flak Cannon, I'm picking the compacts just for the Aeon Glass, and as a residual effect, this just becomes no downside or even positive. but I can like pick Rocket Punch with it. I wasn't really doing that before, and now that all these cards are just in my decks all the time, then this is just insanely good. Pretty easy to speculate on, even if you have to like skip it in the boss fight or something, whatever. But one burn is not so bad to get like your Echo Form down early, or your Capacitor, and dig into your Frost or find your weakness or whatever. Really nice to be able to like hologram this back if you have other energy generation and just dig through your entire deck. And again, Defect has like this huge burst energy package and this huge burst draw package, and I want to eventually combine them both. You need to pick one before the other at some point to get into the whole combination of things, and this is one of the easiest things to pick to like turbo through your deck basically. Okay, next up, multicast, X cost, skill, evoke your rightmost orb X times. The upgrade's pretty important. It goes to X plus 1. But most of the time, I think multicast is just too clunky and just often worse than dual cast. If you have a lot of energy on a Dark Orb, it's really good, or a Plasma Orb is really good. These feel like very fringe cases where I have one, that amount of excess energy, and also specifically a Dark Orb to multicast. If you have Chemax, whatever, really good. But again, how are you getting Chemax without already having this? I don't know. So you're not really picking this without it being broken already, but I don't know how you're getting the thing. If you see it upgraded, sure, but most of the time just kind of awkward. I'm going to put it at top of C. It can do stuff, especially in Aeon Glass, to like, you loop one Dark Orb, you eventually draw into multicast, you multicast for like 4x on the Dark Orb, and it ends the fight. But doesn't happen super often. There's lots of easier ways to make a huge amount of damage happen. Okay, probably the most changed card since last time. One that's just got a massive buff. The number just got buffed by a lot. 2-cost Uproar attack, deal 6 damage twice. Play a random attack from your draw pile. This card is like one of the most fun cards in the entire game. Because Defect has all these super expensive cards, you can sort of cheat them out with Uproar. Rocket Punch is already in my deck. Frost Lance is already in my deck. Lots of these cards are just in my deck that this is very abusable with. Refract, Meteor Strike can get in the deck because of this. Just really cool. You can play Uproar Clone and just win immediately every single run. Honestly, this is one of the better common attacks for sure. And scales nicely with strength with like the Bulk Up, scales nicely with enchantments. Really, really, really solid. I kind of love this card now. I'm just going to put it at like bottom of A. I don't think it's better than like picking Cold Snap or something on like floor 1, but really, really cool now after changes and after kind of how we play the game now. I will say that one thing you want to be careful about with Uproar is Shatter. Sometimes you don't want to randomly play Shatter and get rid of all your orbs. So be very careful with that. Sometimes you end up skipping Shatter if you have this in the deck, or if it's not just very good or whatever. Sometimes Shatter's so broken that it doesn't matter and you just pick it anyways. But yeah, hitting Flak Cannon off of this is pretty nice. Hitting Barrage off of this, hitting the Ice Lance, hitting all the attacks you really see. On Defect, just really cool. Multiple copies of Uproar just make each other better, and you can just chain them into each other. You can kind of think about it like plus draw. But because you're playing all your energy on one turn, you often don't want draw on that turn. You want draw on future turns, and Uproar is doing that. It's just pulling out garbage attacks out of your draw pile so that you don't have to draw into them. You draw into your important cards, and you can play them on a turn where you do have all your energy. So just a really cool interaction that I like a lot. Maybe we bump this up a tiny bit. I think it's better than Gunk and maybe better than Boost Away. But yeah, pretty solid damage common now. Very fun as well. So maybe I'm overrating it a little bit because of that. But I've had a lot of success using Uproar to just hit big attacks. And that feels like a really fun way to play Defect and also quite strong. Okay, Subroutine, 1 energy. Whenever you play a power, gain 1 energy. This upgrades to 0 cost Subroutine. So you essentially turn it into I make energy from playing this, which again helps Defect just turbo through the deck. I'm picking more powers on this character than I used to because of the status powers, and I think now we can just kind of safely put this at like bottom of S, maybe top of A. I think turbo is probably still better than it in a lot of cases, but it is quite strong. The iteration just randomly gets in, Hailstorm is in, obviously all the S tier powers are in, makes your Echo Form more replayable. With Game Piece is disgusting. Like Subroutine Game Piece is just really, really gross. If you have Mummy Hand with that Game Piece as well, it's like the same thing, but just basically draws through your entire deck. You can just get a lot of situations where Subroutine gets very broken. Really cool. Okay, Supercritical, 0 energy, skill, gain 4 energy, exhaust. Basically turbo, you know. How bad can this be? I mean, make 4 energy, like, come on. Let's just put it where it needs to go, somewhere in here. Doesn't work with all the status packages, but again, if you have a lot of draw, which Defect decks often do have, you can sort of just slam this and just go through your whole deck. So Defect will do that more often than any other character. I think just setting up every single card in their entire deck in one turn happens, and Supercritical is a very good piece to do that. If you just have Coolheadeds or whatever, just pick this, it's going to go in. There's a lot of ancient relics that also give draw. You have like Pale's Blood. There's the red one in Act 3 that just draws a card every 4 cards you play, that sort of thing. If you have any sort of draw like this, any sort of draw in the deck, it's just really going to be broken. Doesn't get picked over stuff like Defrag and Echo Form and things like this, but very often it's just insanely good to see. Okay, Hyperbeam. I looked at Meteor Strike and they looked very similar, but let's talk about Hyperbeam because I already said it. This is just going into tier. I don't think I've picked this card like ever. It's basically just never. You never really have a way to make more focus come back. And you cannot negate the downside with Artifact. You can't negate it with Pellets. It doesn't actually end fights that it needs to end. Does nothing in the bosses. I'm mostly scared of like Aeon and a lot of these bosses now, and Hyperbeam is just not doing it. So basically never pick it. I don't think I've ever really felt a run in the early game that was so scary that I needed to pick it, and that was the only time it was getting picked inside of Spire 1. The early game and mostly the whole game is just easier than Spire 1, so the situation where I feel pressured enough to pick this is just not it. Yeah, if you get Splash Hyperbeam on another character and you don't use Focus, great, but you don't get that on this character. Please do not play this thing unless it's literally ending the fight. Maybe you get it from Attack Pod or something and it's going to be great, but actually adding to the deck, it's just horrible. You cannot play the rest of the fight with no focus. It just doesn't happen. Okay, Meteor Strike, 5 energy, deal 24 damage, channel 3 plasma. With Uproar, way better. Without Uproar, I don't think I can ever really play this thing. If you can, it can be really, really broken. If you have Bulk Up and you play Meteor Strike, a plasma immediately evokes, and it's pretty easy to make 5 energy with like a turbo. The main problem with usually is that you make 5 energy, you play Meteor, and then you can't evoke the plasma to get energy to keep your turn going. And technically, Meteor Strike makes 6 energy if you just evoke all the orbs. So it is energy positive. There's a lot more funny infinite stuff with this in Spire 1 that doesn't happen in Spire 2 anymore. And I think I'm like lower on this now than I used to be. I think there's just less of a need to really have Meteor Strike play. If you have Uproar, it's really fun. You can play it. Sometimes it will evoke all your frost, and that's not even good. So even if you do have Uproar, it's not necessarily like completely broken or something. But yeah, just not in my deck as often as it once was, especially inside of Spire 1. Okay, Signal Boost. 1 energy skill. The next power you play is played an additional time. Exhaust. I mentioned this before, comparing it to Amplify from Spire 1. You don't have to draw it alongside anything. You can play it and then play your powers next turn, which gives you a lot of flexibility. Even if you draw it in a turn with powers, you can sort of just say like, I don't need to dupe those. I can play my powers and play Signal Boost at the end and then dupe a power later. A lot of powers are run winning on their own. If you have Defrag and you can dupe Defrag, you just sort of win. If you dupe Trash to Treasure, you can sort of just win. If you dupe Capacitor, it's really, really strong. There's a lot of powers that you just dupe and you just win the run. Coolant dupe is really good. Iteration dupe, Subroutine dupe, whatever. All these things are quite strong. Just based on the fact that you need other powers with it, I won't put it super high. It's probably just going inside of A tier, I think. Very strong when it actually works. It's just that you need the stuff to make it work. But duping Loop on its own can win the run. Like, so many powers, if you just have another copy of it, it's just so strong. It can very often just be a second copy of like an upgraded power already, and you don't have to spend the upgrade on it. Obviously, you have to draw into it and play it or whatever, but it's just kind of awkward very often. Move up Claw Coward. No, I won't. I don't think so. Okay, Storm, 1 energy, power whenever you play a power, channel 1 lightning. This upgrades to channel 2 lightning. In the first game, it became innate. I don't know if that's better or worse. It just doesn't get picked very often. Like I said, lightning is not something you really want to be doing very often. And the main way that Storm was very good in the previous game was like Bias Cognition, play Storm, and the fight immediately. Bias Cog is still picked in this game and is quite good. So you can do that. That's like the main use case for it, is when you have bias and you just need to get out of the fight immediately. If you don't have permanent focus, this is not doing a whole lot. But there are runs where like you have Mummy Hand, you have Subroutine, you just have a bunch of powers already. You can just take this, play your bias, like slam all your powers, bam. Creative AI, you can do some funny stuff like Creative AI, Bias Cognition, whatever. Most of the time, I think it's not very good though. I think it's probably better than Thunder and some of these other things, but probably bottom of C tier. Okay, Shatter, 1 energy, attack, deal 7 damage to all enemies, evoke all of your orbs twice. On the current beta branch patch, this reads Exhaust on it. That nerf did absolutely nothing. This is like one of the most broken cards in the entire game. If you have Dark Orbs, which I've been talking about this entire time, how broken Dark Orbs are, you have like 3-4 Dark Orbs, you dual cast all of them, the fight ends. I don't care that this thing exhausts because I never need to play it more than once. It just wins automatically. It blocks a million when you need it to, just does a million damage for absolutely no reason. Like, I don't know what they were cooking when they changed this to double everything. It doesn't make any sense. This could read 0 damage and evoke all your orbs twice would be completely broken. It would be way more balanced, but still completely busted. It doesn't need half the lines of text on it, and it's still a disgusting card. Please just pick it on sight. Like I mentioned, it has some weird interaction with Uproar. Like, sometimes you don't want to play it, or it can play it too early. But this is just kills Aeon Glass immediately. You cook a few Dark Orbs, you win. You have Orb slots, and you're struggling to get your Dark Orbs to evoke. You're not struggling anymore because it just evokes the ones in the back. Like, who cares? Probably one of the most buff cards I've ever seen in a game, and probably one of the most push cards I've ever seen in a game. It's just not okay, and they need to nerf this thing again. I don't know how, but just gross. Please delete it. Okay, Spinner. 1 energy power at the start of your turn, channel 1 glass. Defect, again, struggles to deal with AoE quite often, and likes just pushing orbs out, especially early game. This is a power that works without really needing focus or much else to work with it. This just kind of solves the potato in Act 1 on its own, and solves a lot of fights inside of Act 2 very nicely. The upgrade is very good because it channels a glass immediately, which kind of is 1 extra turn of this activating if you think about it. So yeah, very good card. I think this is easy A tier here. Quite strong, probably better than Hailstorm. Not necessarily, but it just needs less stuff. You can pick it without even having Hailstorm. I guess we can dock it because it's a rare card, but in a vacuum, probably better than Hailstorm. It's just it's seen up against other rares more often, so can be worse. But yeah, just a really strong AoE option. Gets in the deck pretty frequently inside of early game, especially. Late game, sometimes you just don't want it. If you don't want to be pushing orbs around because you're trying to like loop a Dark Orb and keep it in the front slot for a while, it can be pretty bad, but usually just excellent. Okay, Sunder. 3 energy, attack, deal 24 damage. If this kills an enemy, gain 3 energy. Call me crazy, I think this is worse than it is in Spire 1. I've played with it a lot because it was a very, very strong card inside of Spire 1. It doesn't feel nearly as strong. It's still quite good, don't get me wrong, but just slightly worse. I think it's still A tier over like these like Cold Snap whatever attacks. Basically pseudo AoE. You can sort of just like kill a Decimillipede and keep your turn going. That's what you want to do in a lot of these AoE fights anyways, to sort of stabilize. I think Exoskeletons makes it a little bit worse, but it's enough. And one of the main reasons why I think Beam Cell can get in the deck is you have like a Sunder and you upgrade your Beam Cell. Sunder will kill the enemy because it was like 48 and everyone's happy. So yeah, it can do quite a bit. Take and upgrade this, it will perform. Falls off a cliff later, and as a good Echo Form target as well, because you're almost guaranteed to get the energy refund. But there's a lot of enemies inside of Act 2 with like 60 health, Breakpoint with like Vol in 1 attack, and Sunder is going to kill it. So it does get you out of a lot of fights like the Mites. That is really, really scary. Decimillipede, obviously super good. Just does enough. Not exceptional, not run winning in the same way I think it was in Spire 1. You needed like front load damage a lot more in that game for dealing with like slavers or something, because they would just straight up kill you. And Decimillipedes are pretty close to that, but not quite on the same level. So just less of a need because you don't actually die for not having something like that. And there's other ways to deal a bunch of damage. Okay, Refract. 3 energy, attack, deal 9 damage twice, channel 2 glass. This is another AoE option that is pretty strong and works with Uproar. So I'm a big fan of this card. I don't think it's as strong as some other stuff, but it is like picked over Cold Snap, I think, for me, and probably FTL. Just early game, especially inside of Overgrowth, this is just doing so much damage. And again, another reason why Crossbow is really good on Defect. Picking all the speculative energy is really good on Defect. It works well with enchantments, not as well as some other multi-hit cards that are like more hits or whatever, but making a bunch of orbs, pushing your orbs out, and having 2 glass orbs is just enough AoE, I think, to get through like Potato and push damage in a lot of difficult fights that need damage to be pushed. So I like this quite a bit. There's a lot of attacks inside of A tier. In general, I think Defect attacks are just really good. Attacks are still not, as a whole, I think some of the better cards in the game, like skills and powers, are just better almost always, but attacks on Defect are definitely hitting above their weight class for sure. Okay, reboots. 0 energy, skill, shuffle all your cards into your draw pile, draw 4 cards, exhaust. I think this is a lot worse now that status cards are becoming more important. You can't really hold like a compact in hand, reboot, and draw all your statuses and hope for it to work, right? And all your statuses go to the discard, so often what this does is just shuffles all of your statuses into your draw pile, which is not what you want to be doing. It kind of needs the upgrade, or it just doesn't draw enough, and like turboing through your deck doesn't really happen with this, because again, if you're playing a bunch of the energy stuff and a bunch of the statuses and like the rocket punch and stuff, it can just kind of screw you. So I think this is kind of hard to pick nowadays. If it comes green, sure. If you don't have status package stuff and you're just playing like Frost Focus slop, then Reboot's fine, but it's definitely like C tier for me now, and just not nearly as good as it used to be. Okay, Voltaic, 3 energy, channel lightning equal to the lightning already channeled as combat exhaust. Echo form target, how often do you have lightning to actually make this thing pop off? Almost never. The upgrade says not exhaust, which it kind of needs if you're going to be using this as like a desperation boss solve. I think that's literally all it is. It's very close to D tier for me, but the fact that it can be like a desperate solve is bumping it up a little bit. I just think it's ultra desperation, really. Just not good at all. Like you barely pick it, not worth speculating on, pretty close to these other cards down here. It's pretty trash. Okay, white noise, 1 energy skill, add a random power into your hand. It's free to play this turn, exhaust. Pretty weird card. The upgrade is good, so if you see it green and you just want like random crap, if you have the relic from the Act 2 event that gives you 8 damage for every power played, can do something. If you have Subroutine, can like be kind of funny and generate energy. Can Desperation generate creative AI to solve a boss or something? Not super good. I want to know what my powers are doing most of the time, and a lot of powers straight up don't do anything. Like if you generate, for example, Thunder off of this, you're going to be very sad. If you generate like Smokestack or Storm or something off of this and you have no other powers or nothing that works with those things, you're going to be very, very upset. I think this is pretty bottom of the barrel. I probably pick it more than I pick Voltaic, but it's not a lot. It's very weird. Okay, trash to treasure. 1 energy power. When you create a status channel, 1 random orb. This upgrades to innate, which is very important because you can often just like blast all the enemies in the entire game with it. This is easy S tier for me. Now that I'm doing all this status stuff very frequently, this is making way too many orbs. I don't even care what the orbs are. You're just generating a million of them. And when you're evoking all of them, because you're spinning through all of them, you're just going to get a bunch of random block, a bunch of random damage, like maybe get a plasma orb and you can invoke that and keep going. Just crazy, crazy card. Especially multiple copies of this, they just compound with each other. Again, the more you can generate plasma, the more you can just keep digging and just keep drawing. Really worth speculating on this thing, even if you don't have any status stuff. Carried as a curse, it's just going to be good. This card, definitely, I went way up on my eval since the last time. It's just, the status stuff I think I understand a lot better than I did before. This is a huge contributor to making that status archetype feel so good. It doesn't need it, but it does feel really broken when you have it. Next up, Sweeping Beam. 1 energy, attack, deal 6 damage to all enemies, draw 1 card, upgrades to 9. I can't remember the last time I picked Sweeping Beam. I think it was really like not good in Spire 1, and it's still not really that great here. It's just not enough AoE damage. There's so many more things you can pick, like Glass Orbs or whatever, that just feel so much better than this. I am struggling to think if I should put this in D or C. It's definitely one of those options. It feels pretty much just as bad to click as a lot of these things in D tier for me, but it is like definitely top of D if anything. So we'll put this here. Okay. Machine Learning, 1 energy power. At the start of your turn, draw 1 additional card, upgrades to innate. This card is really insane. Again, the status stuff requires you to kind of line up your stuff. So I think this is just easy S tier for me. I don't think I've really ever thought a Machine Learning was going to be negative when I picked it in this game, and that was not really true in Spire 1. Very easy to see like a boot sequence and just upgrade this, make it innate, have an anchor, upgrade this, make it innate, have a bagger prep, upgrade this, make it innate, whatever. And then your whole fight just goes so smoothly. Like if you have any turn 1 support from relics or whatever, this supports the rest of the fight and is just drawing a million cards. I love Machine Learning in this game. I think it is really, really, really strong. Basically just always clicked. And that's not something I was going to be saying before, but I have not had a situation where I don't really want Machine Learning in the deck. Unless I have like Pocket Watch in iteration already or something. You would have to be like already really, really winning. It just doesn't happen very often that it's not. So like 95% of the time just immediately clicked. Okay, last up, Skim. 1 energy, skill, draw 3 cards. Compared to Necrobinder, who doesn't really like this effect, Defect really loves this effect. You will very often have double energy, have a ton of excess energy, make plasma orbs, have turbos, just need to keep digging through your deck, have statuses that you need to draw through. This is exceptionally good at doing that. I think this is just A tier now. I think I had it in B before, but Defect really loves just having a ton of energy now, and I'm speculating turbos way more often. So for someone who's doing that, this is a very, very powerful card. Can't pick it over a lot of stuff early, but is just slammed if you have any excess energy at all. If you have the 4 energy relic from Tez on turn 1, this is just picked immediately. Just turbo into your stuff. Literally, if you have turbo, great. Works with boost away all the 0 cost stuff because you're just drawing into value. Have iteration, whatever. Just exceptional, exceptional card. Skim, I think, is something that Defect really wanted in Spire 1, and I don't think that was really changed very much in Spire 2. If anything, it's even worse, but it's just because Defect has other ways to draw cards now that it didn't really have inside of Spire 1, like Coolheaded Plus is still really, really good, but you're just making so much energy so frequently that I'm able to just pick this and not get punished for it. If you don't have energy, don't pick it. If your Act 1 is sketchy, don't speculate on it. It will kill you if you pick it too early, which is why it's not going in S tier, but it's very frequently going to become very broken very quickly. Okay, that's everything. Defect overall is just a little too strong right now, probably. I think everything just kind of works and it just flows together so nicely now. Now that I sort of understand the status packages better, I think that's just more and more true. Characters feel so good. Like, you can kind of pick anything and win. I know Opum literally did a random card challenge where he had like a random number generator and then just like every single floor clicked random and it just like picked the card based on him clicking random and he won first try. So I think that's a testament to one, Opum's skill, but also how strong the character and the packages are. Like, everything sort of just works. There's not really any super horrendous cards. Like, there's bad cards, but there's just not very many of them. For the most part, you can kind of scrape together something that is going to work no matter what. It feels very consistent. You're very strong early game, very strong in the end game. Deals with Aeon Glass almost the best out of any character. I think compared to like maybe Clad, it's similar. But you really don't have to respect that fight as much as the other characters do just because you have so many tools for dealing with statuses. That is something that the other characters lack. So yeah, Defect, very, very strong. We'll likely see nerfs in the future, I would assume. But in the meantime, enjoy playing it. I think he's pretty fun. Just a little bit too strong to really grind out right now. Okay, I think that's it. So thanks for watching on the YouTube side, everyone. I don't know. Defect feels so weird now because I feel like everything's so good like most of the time. It feels hard to like put things into tiers. So much stuff is just so broken. You kind of just pick whatever. You just do whatever you want.